In this lecture and the next few lectures, we're going to be talking about a popular type of vulnerabilities called SQL injections. Before we start talking about how this occurs and how to exploit it, let's first learn what SQL is. Now, if you're getting a pen test on a certain website, chances are this website is a little bit bigger than smaller websites, so it's probably using a database. Most websites, other than very simple websites, use databases, and the databases are used to store data. So they store usernames, passwords, news articles, blog posts, pictures, anything that happens on the website literally is stored on a database, and the web application queries the database and then displays the data to you or to the users on screen. When the users do something, it will either update, delete, or modify the data that exists in the database. This interaction between the web application and the database happens using a language called SQL. So let me show you what I mean by a database. This is just an example. I'm not hacking anything. I'm literally just going to log in to the database that is installed on our Metasploitable machine, and then we're just gonna see what's being stored on it. So I'm not doing any hacking. There's nothing here, nothing fancy. Just logging into my SQL, and then I'm putting the username as root, and the Metasploitable doesn't use a password for the root, which is really bad, but obviously it's a vulnerable system. So I'm just gonna log in, and I'm not hacking anything. I'm not doing any SQL injections. This is just the terminal for my SQL, which the web application would use to interact with the database. So I'm just trying to show you what I mean by databases and what's saved in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in show databases, and that will show us the databases that exist on our target server. And we can see that we have the information schema. This is a default database that holds default information about all the other databases. So this one gets installed by default when you install MySQL. The rest have been installed for each web application. So we can see we have one for TikiWiki, we have one for OWASP 10, and that's for this one, Matilde. We also have one called MySQL, we have one called Metasploit, and one for DVWA, which is the one that we've been using, the web application. So you can see for each web application, we actually have a database, and this database holds the information that is used by that web application. Let me show you what's in there. So I'm gonna use the OWASP 10 database. So this is the one that is, again, this is the one for Matilde, for this web application. And we can see the tables. So each database has a tables, and in the tables there's information. So I'm gonna say show tables to see the tables that we have. And you can see we have a table for accounts. So you can assume that this table has information about the usernames, passwords, and information about the users. We have a table for blogs, so probably has the blog inputs, the posts, and the comments in there. You can see captured data, credit cards, so there's a table that contains credit cards. Now this is huge for shopping websites. They actually would have credit cards table, and the information for the credit cards would be stored there. Basically, the database will store everything, all the data that is used on the website, because they don't get stored on files. It's not efficient. So let's have a look on the accounts, and if I just say select, so this is exactly how the web application would be retrieving information from the database. It will be selecting stuff, updating, or deleting. So I'm doing a select statement here. Again, this is not hacking. I'm not doing anything, just selecting stuff. And I'm going to select star, which means everything from accounts. And as we can see, we have the account ID, the username, the password, and then the signature for the person, and if that person is an admin. Now these columns depend on the table, so it's actually the person who designs the database designs the tables, the columns as well, and then the data gets inserted by the web application. So we can see that we have a user called admin and their password is admin pass. We can see we have a user called Adrian and their password is some password. So this is just to show you what databases look like and just to get a feel on it, because in the future videos we're gonna try to exploit these databases and have access similar to this. So this, I just logged in with a username and a password now. Usually you wouldn't have access like this, only the web admin would have that access. In the future videos, we're gonna try to run some attacks in order to gain access similar to this, so that we'll have full control over the database, so that we can read stuff and see if we can write or modify things. So I just want to highlight why SQL injections are so important and so dangerous. The reason behind that is they are found, you can find them everywhere. A lot of places, a lot of big websites have these kind of exploits, and like things like Yahoo, Google had them. They're very hard to protect against, and it's very easy to make a mistake to make these exploits available for exploitation. The other reason that they're very dangerous is that they give you access to the database. In many scenarios, if you find an SQL injection, you really don't need to upload a PHP shell or get a reverse connection. There is really no point of uploading stuff and then increasing the danger of being caught. Because if you have access to the database, as we see in here, you pretty much have everything you need. You have usernames, passwords, you can log in with normal username and a password as a normal user. Or you can, if you're looking for sensitive data, we can see that we've had access to credit cards. You pretty much can do anything you want, so there's really no point of trying to further exploit the system. If you found an SQL injection, bingo, like that's all you need really. In many scenarios, we actually use a PHP shell to gain access to the database and see if we can read it. Like say for example, if you manage to upload a PHP shell on this server, the Metasploitable, but then you couldn't access the database. There isn't much that you can see. You can't see credit cards, you can't see username and passwords. You really can't. Yeah, you have control over the server, but you can't read stuff. So sometimes when you upload a PHP shell, the next step is I need to gain access to the database. Another thing is that they can be used to do many things. So if you manage to find an SQL injection in a website that is not your target, so it's not the one that you're targeting, but it's in the same server, then you can use it to read files outside the www root, so similar to file inclusion vulnerabilities. You can use the admin, the username and password for the admin, and see if you can upload stuff. Usually the admin can upload a lot of things instead of just images, and then you can upload a PHP shell or a backdoor from there, and then from there navigate to your target computer, or to the target website, sorry. Or you can actually, in some cases, you can use it to upload a PHP shell. You can use an SQL injection to upload a PHP shell. So basically, SQL injections can be used as file inclusion vulnerabilities. They can be used as file upload vulnerabilities. And also, they'll give you access to the whole database. That's why they are very, very dangerous and very useful if you manage to find one. Now, to try and discover SQL injections, you need to browse through your target and try to break each page. So whenever you see a text box or a parameter on this form, for example, page.php, then something is equal to something, try to inject stuff here. So try to use a single quote, try to use an and, or the order by statement to break the page and make it look different. So I'm going to show you here an example. And I'm gonna go into the login page first, right here. And it's asking me to log in. Now I've actually registered with my own name, so you can just go in here and register. I have a username called Zaid and a password with 123456. So first I'm gonna log in just to show you. So my username is Zaid and my password is 123456. And now I'm logged in as Zaid and my signature was AA, just nothing really, just like as a test. So I'm gonna log out and we're back at the login page. Right here we have the page, so you can try to inject in that, but we'll get into that later. So at the moment we're having an example of injecting into text boxes. So you can try to inject into the name and into the password. So I'm gonna put my name as Zaid and I'm gonna put a single quote, so I'm putting this sign into my password. So let's see if we can break it. And as you can see now, there's an error being displayed to us, and it doesn't look like a normal error. It looks like it's a database error. And usually you would be very lucky if you get an error like this. Now usually the error won't be as informative as this. Sometimes you'll just see that the page is not acting as you expected. Sometimes it'll just be a page that does not look as it should. For example, if it's a news page, maybe it'll have the article missing, or if it's a blog, it'll have one of the posts missing, or different kind of posts. So you need to keep an eye on what's changing. In this example, we are actually getting a really nice error. It's telling us which file it has, and it's telling us that there's an error in the statement, and the error near the quotation mark that we added. And it also tells us the statement that's being executed. This is really good for learning, because now we can see what's the statement that the system is trying to run. And the system is trying to do a select star, so it's trying to select everything from accounts, where the username is equal to Zaid, and the password is equal to a single quote. And note that the system, the web application, is already adding quotes around the name. So when I said Zaid, it added Zaid between two quotes, and it added the single quote that I added between another two quotes. So that's why we have 3 quotes right here. So from this it's like 70% of the target website has an SQL injection. We're still not sure if it can execute what we want it to do. So can I actually inject code and get it to be executed? Let's see if we can do that. So the username is going to be Zaid again. And what I'm going to do with the password, I'm going to put my password. So I'm going to put 123456. And then I'm closing it. So I'll tell you why I'm closing it, because the current statement in the system is it's select star from to Zaid and is equal to, and it's going to open a single quote by itself. So let's call this as password. So we're treating this as a variable, and it takes in whatever I put in here, whatever I'm gonna put in this box, and it's gonna insert it instead of the S password, which is a variable. So I'm giving you an idea, so you need to be able to imagine this happening. So it's taking whatever I put in there and it's gonna put it between 2 single quotes, and it's gonna be inserted in there and executed on the system. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna put 123456 and I'm gonna add the quote myself. So what I'm gonna do right now, the code is gonna be like this. So it's gonna select this and password is equal to that, and I have 2 quotes right now. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna say and 1 is equal to 1. So 1 is equal to 1, and I'm just trying to see if it's going to execute what I want it to do. So my statement right now is it's going to be select star from accounts where username is equal to Zaid and password is equal to 123456. And note, I'm going to be inserting this myself, and 1 is equal to 1. One problem that the system is going to complain about is that we have an extra quote here, because I'm going to be inserting this myself in the text box. So it's going to be complaining about this. It's going to say this is an open quote and it's has been closed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment. And when you add a comment, basically everything that comes in after the comment will not be executed. I'm going to use the hash as the comment. So anything that comes in after the hash, the system is going to ignore. So what I'm going to inject now is going to be this, and 1 is equal to 1, and this. So as I said, usually what you have here, you have /$password, or depending on what the programmer called it, but we're just imagining this. And I'm going to be inserting this inside. So when you do that and you insert it inside, this is what the code is going to look like. So it's going to look like the right username, the right password, and 1 is equal to 1, which is true. And then it's going to ignore this quote right here. So if we paste this, we should be able to log in. It should allow me to log in. And perfect, we were able to log in, and username is Zaid. So far we haven't done anything, but this kind of shows us that is it running our code? Let's try a different thing now. Let's try to add a false statement. So what we did 1 equal 1, and that was correct, and it executed what we wanted. Let's try 1 equals 2, and this is false. So I have the right password, and I have the right username, but I added and 1 is equal to 2. And this should be wrong because it's false. 1 is not equal to 2, and I'm using an and, so everything has to be true. So it should give me an error, even though I'm going to put the right username, and I'm going to put the right password. So I'm putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1 is equal to 2. So it's going to be like, oh, this is wrong. And as you can see, it's giving me an authentication error, bad username or password, even though I'm given the right password and the right username. So this confirms that this website is actually injecting anything we want in the password. So we can use the password field to inject SQL code. And it's always going to be on this form. So we're going to put a password, and you're going to put your code here. So I'm just going to put it in capital code here, because we're going to put any password, close the quote, and then put the code that we want to execute on the system right here, and it's going to be executed on the target system.